Deep in the heart of the ocean, there lived a mermaid named Coral. She had long, flowing hair the color of seaweed, and her tail shimmered like the scales of a rainbow fish. She was known throughout the ocean for her beauty, her kind heart, and her love of adventure. One day, as she was exploring a coral reef, she heard a sound that she had never heard before. It was a strange, creaking noise, like the groan of a wooden ship. Intrigued, Coral swam closer to investigate. As she rounded a cluster of rocks, she saw the most amazing sight. There, floating on the surface of the water, was a magnificent pirate ship. It was a galleon, with tall masts and billowing sails, and it gleamed in the sunlight like a jewel. Coral had never seen anything like it before. She had heard tales of humans who sailed the ocean in ships, but she had never imagined that they could be so grand. As she swam closer to the ship, she heard voices coming from the deck. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should reveal herself. But her curiosity got the better of her, and she surfaced near the side of the ship. The crew of the ship was bustling about, hoisting ropes and scrubbing the deck. Coral watched in fascination, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. And then, she saw him. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a mane of curly black hair and a beard that reached down to his chest. He wore a long coat and a tricorn hat, and he looked every inch the pirate that Coral had heard so much about. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw something that surprised her. They were a deep, piercing blue, like the ocean on a clear day. And as he turned to look at her, a smile spread across his face. "Ahoy, there," he called out, his voice carrying across the water. "What brings a beautiful mermaid like you to our ship?" Coral hesitated for a moment, unsure how to respond. But something about the pirate's warm, friendly tone put her at ease. "I was just curious," she replied, her voice carrying on the wind. "I've never seen a ship like this before." The pirate grinned. "Well, you're in luck, my dear. This here is the Black Pearl, the finest ship on the 7 seas. And I am Captain Jack Sparrow, at your service." Coral smiled back, feeling a flutter in her chest. She had never met a human before, let alone a pirate, and she was entranced by this larger-than-life character. As the day wore on, Coral and Jack talked and laughed, getting to know each other as well as two beings from such different worlds could. Coral showed Jack the wonders of the undersea world, taking him on a tour of the coral reef and introducing him to all sorts of sea creatures. And Jack regaled her with tales of his adventures on the high seas, spinning yarns about battles with sea monsters and treasure hunts on far-off islands. As the sun began to set, Coral realized that she had lost track of time. She was supposed to be meeting her family for dinner, but she couldn't bear the thought of leaving Jack's side. "Will you come with me?" she asked, her heart racing. "To meet my family, I mean. They would love to meet you." Jack's eyes sparkled with amusement. "I'm not sure your family would take kindly to a human pirate crashing their dinner party," he said. "But I appreciate the invitation, lass. It's been a pleasure spending the day." "Continue. With you." Coral felt a pang of disappointment, but she knew that Jack was right. Her family was fiercely protective of their undersea kingdom, and they had little love for humans, let alone pirates. Reluctantly, she said goodbye to Jack and swam back to her family's coral palace. As she entered the grand hall, she could hear the chatter and laughter of her family members, and the aroma of roasted fish and seaweed filled her nostrils. Her mother, Queen Nixie, was presiding over the meal, flanked by Coral's father, King Triton, and her older sisters, Marina and Pearl. They all looked up as she entered, and their faces lit up with surprise. "Coral, where have you been?" Marina asked, swimming over to her. "We've been waiting for you for hours." Coral hesitated for a moment, unsure how to explain her absence. But then she decided to tell them the truth. "I met a human today," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "A pirate. His name is Jack Sparrow, and he's amazing." There was a stunned silence as her family members processed this news. They had heard of humans before, of course, but they had always been seen as a threat, not potential friends or allies. King Triton was the first to speak. "A human? And a pirate, no less? Coral, you know that we can't trust humans. They are dangerous and unpredictable." Coral bristled at this. "Not all humans are the same, father," she said. "Jack is different. He's not like the others." Queen Nixie put a hand on her daughter's shoulder, her expression softening. "I know that you're curious, Coral. But you have to understand that humans and merfolk are not meant to mix. Our worlds are too different, and our ways of life are too incompatible. It's for your own safety that we must keep them at a distance." Coral felt a lump form in her throat. She knew that her family was only trying to protect her, but she couldn't help feeling hurt and frustrated. She had never felt so alive as she had with Jack, and the thought of never seeing him again was unbearable. That night, as she lay in her bed of seaweed and shells, Coral couldn't shake the memory of Jack's smiling face. She closed her eyes and tried to imagine what it would be like to be with him, to feel his arms around her, to explore the world with him by her side. And then, she heard a sound. It was a faint scraping noise, like something dragging across the sea floor. She sat up, listening intently, and realized that it was coming from outside her window. Curious, she swam over to the window and looked out. And there, in the moonlight, she saw Jack. He was perched on a rock just outside her window, grinning up at her. "Surprise, surprise," he said, holding up a hand. "I couldn't stay away." Coral's heart leapt with joy. She swam over to the window and opened it, letting Jack climb inside. They hugged each other tightly, their bodies entwining in the water. For the rest of the night, they talked and laughed and shared stories. They watched the moon rise over the ocean and listened to the sounds of the sea. And as the hours ticked by, they knew that they had found something special, something rare and precious. As dawn approached, Jack leaned in and kissed Coral on the lips. It was a gentle, tender kiss, but it spoke volumes. It was a promise.